Hey, what's up everybody? It is Kellen here from Start Your Systems again, and welcome to another Pro Motocross National Gameplay in MX Simulator, where today we are going to play round 4, High Point, brand new track in Delmont, Pennsylvania, and just got to get the first crash out of the way, right? I mean, just go into turn 1, crash, and hopefully we don't crash as often because we get an early crash out of the way. But for any of those of you, alright, turn 2, already another crash. For those of you that have never watched this series before, this is basically where I play the track, the weekly pro track in MX Simulator, and talk about real life motocross in the process, as well as talking about the track in game just a little bit, giving you my thoughts and opinions on the track, and then also my thoughts and opinions on real life motocross. And yeah, so hopefully you'll stick around and enjoy the full spectrum of what I've got planned for you in this video. But if you don't, I understand. 3 crashes in, what is that, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 corners or so. So hopefully that trend does not continue. I noticed in some of my last couple videos that I did in this gameplay series that people were saying they wished I would learn the track a little bit more and come into these videos more prepared and do a better job or what have you. So I tried to do that by playing a little bit more today than I normally do, and by a little bit more than I normally do, I played about a half hour on the track to get kind of used to it beforehand. And I also changed my setup back to the setup I was using right before I started fixing my setup for Supercross. So like the base setup that I went with to start before Supercross began, and then I started, playing it with it from there. So this is really still like a Supercross setup that I'm using, but it definitely is a little bit plusher because I used to run really soft suspension, but then for Supercross I tried to stiffen it up because I wanted to actually be competitive in Supercross since I raced it this year. So not quite there yet with the setup, just trying to revert back to something that I'm comfortable with and know a little bit better before I start really playing with my setup and getting it to a level that I can actually show off and do a setup video for you guys. But yeah, let's talk a little bit about this track. First of all, as you can tell, this is a completely, and I mean brand new, high point. Like, this is, like, the finish line is, I don't know if it's ever been in that spot, but I just went over it right there. And the uphill, the classic uphill turning triple into the start straight isn't here anymore. This is where it comes back onto the start. And the start is also kind of rebuilt into this giant bowl turn first corner thing. So these first couple sections are kind of the same of what we're used to, although this comes down the hill a little bit more than it used to. But this giant, I think it's called the Carmichael Double at the top of the hill right here, is still here. Then the classic turning downhill rollers at High Point are still here. But then it goes straight on and it doesn't go down into the off camber like it used to. Or what it did before, which is also kind of an off camber into a left. Now it's a sharp right, goes back up this hill a little bit, and then another sharp left, and then back down the hill again into kind of a sharp right. These aren't full 180s, but they're somewhat 180s. And then the uphill corner that used to be where the giant turning double was, but that's not there anymore. And then heading into the back section, and then they introduced this kind of, I don't know what you call it, it's like a giant triple quad thing. They introduced it a few years ago, so it's still here, and in sim it is giant. Like, you could go for days on it, and I've already seen some gifs of people getting all whipped out on it through the valley like normal and up the other side. That's kind of what they did the last couple of years. Then this section is pretty much the same in the back as what it's been for 5 years now, which is this double into the back. And then instead of it kind of sweeping out all the way out straight ahead of me, it just does a sharp U-turn, little off camber, and then back down into the valley. So it still uses a lot of the same elements. But then this is where it goes completely different to anything I've ever seen on this track before, which is it turns up this hill, and instead of going straight on what used to be called Bradshaw Boulevard, it hangs a tight left, and it's got this like tabletop step-down thing, and then drops back down into the valley, the main valley of the track. Oh, I thought I was going to save that. And this off camber that I just crashed in used to be backwards. Like, they used to hit it backwards maybe 6 years ago, and then it would go back up into that back section before heading up to the top of the hill. And then they also introduced this giant uphill triple, which seems to be the thing to do on tracks these days, is make ridiculous uphill triples. So, I mean, it's just like, it's completely new, it's completely different, and I'm not 100% sure that this is exactly how the track's gonna look, but I know the RF guys did some serious due diligence with making sure that some of the GoPro footage that they saw of the track beforehand was at least similar to what they actually built on this track. So, I mean, I think it's gonna be pretty close to this, but if it's not, you know, that's just a product of trying to build the track before it actually happens in real life. So obviously just kind of bear with the track guys for RF, because they're just trying to do the best they can with basically predicting what the track is going to look like. But if it does look exactly like this, like I said, there's a lot of big changes on this track that I've never seen before, so pretty unique. Kind of excited to see it. I do like this layout, honestly. I feel like it's fast, it has some pretty good flow. It's got maybe a little bit too many big jumps on it for like my personal preference, because I'd like to see more hills and natural flowing motocross sections. But that just seems to be the way that it's going these days, with everybody wanting to build just the mega jumps and cool stuff for fans and stuff like that. So, you know, whatever. But yeah, that's track this week. Hopefully it's something like this. If it's not, whatever. Let's talk about Real Moto. How about that, huh? Last time out raced in Thunder Valley, these guys did round 3, and then we took a week off, so I haven't really had my chance to voice my opinions on that Thunder Valley race. And although the race is quite old now, I still think that it was probably one of the more exciting, interesting nationals I've seen in recent memory. Like, I can't really jog my memory too much of a national that included that much craziness and different drama. Like, it was all across the board with what was going on. Like, you couldn't really follow it. Starting off with 450s, Tomac trying to rebound after that, you know, not winning the first moto at Glen Helen, so his perfect season went down the drain, and then his front brake disc failed thing again. Like, it started locking up on him, so they had to cut the front brake line in Moto 2. He salvaged 19th at Glen Helen. So coming into Thunder Valley, you know, basically a home track. He's from Colorado, he lives in Colorado. You'd assume that he'd just go off and just basically kill everybody. Not the case. First moto, he was in 3rd, I believe. He was behind Justin Bogle and Jason Anderson. Well, before I even get to that, I want to say that you know, the first moto for 450 started off with Blake Baggett and Marvin Muscan and I believe Josh Grant and a couple other guys getting tangled together in the first corner, right at the exit of the first corner. So that took out some of kind of the, well, at least Marvin, who, you know, was leading the points going in. It took out essentially what you'd assume is the, you know, the title contender between him and Tomac. And you were like, oh man, Tomac's gonna make up a bunch of points, la 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 la. But then Tomac's running 3rd, Bogle's leading the race. He's getting away from Anderson, which, like, some people were already kind of like, what the heck is going on here? And Tomac wasn't really making any inroads on those guys. It's not like he was going like 4 seconds a lap faster like we're used to from Tomac Outdoors. And then he fell and got passed by, shoot, I don't remember who passed him, but it was, you know, it was like, I think Barsha was in there. A couple other guys, you know, didn't end up on the box, but he got passed by them, and then just kind of kept fading backwards. Like, Barsha passed him, Tomac got up and repassed Barsha, and then like Muscan and Baggett flying through the pack came up and passed all those guys. Muscan still ahead, or was ahead of Baggett, and then like Muscan, Baggett, they go around Tomac, and then Tomac continues to like seize up. Tomac goes and gets passed by Barsha then, and I think he finished 6th or 7th in the first moto. It was just really weird out of Tomac. But anyway, Baggett was really kind of like the man that got the most credit in that first moto for doing something special, because he came from down in the first corner to 3rd, and he passed Muscan, who got up in front of him in the process. And legitimately, like, if he could have gotten there sooner, probably would have had a chance to get Anderson. Like, he didn't end up that far behind Anderson in the end. But overall, the story of the first moto was Justin Bogle winning not only his first career 450 moto, his first moto ever. He's never won a 250 moto. He's never won an outdoor pro national moto in his life, and he picks up 450 moto 1 win. Just like like shocked me, shocked a lot of people, I would assume. I was like happy, proud for the guy, like good job, you know, fantastic ride. He rode away from Jason Anderson, which again I was still kind of like what, but like he killed it. Like he was literally one of, if not the fastest guy on the track for most of the race until Baggett started just laying waste to people. And he rode fantastic, like really good job for Justin Bogle. And it just like totally came out of left field. Like you expect Musquin, you expect Tomac to maybe win a race. Anderson winning at Glen Helen in Moto 2 was like, yeah, I can believe it, even though it was his first, you know, 450 Moto win ever. You could still be like, okay, Anderson is expected to be a title contender at some point. Like he knows he's got to start winning. But Justin Bogle, like, oh my gosh, I was pumped. Like that was awesome. You know, it just completely flipped it upside down. And then going into Moto 2, I'm still thinking like, well, the real Tomac has got to show up. Like, can the real Eli Tomac please stand up? Because he's got to, you know, figure this out at some point. Otherwise, it's starting to look almost like a problem that he's having. I'm not really sure what nature the problem would be, but you know, he didn't look like he was like the fired up Tomac that we expected at Glen Helen. And I know that he had the issue in the second moto, but it wasn't like he was going to destroy Marvin in the first moto. Like if he started with him, he would have won, but he wasn't going to beat him by 30 seconds or anything like that. And then like just didn't look comfortable at all in the first moto after that crash. Even before the crash, he didn't look great, but then after the crash, he just was all over the place. So going into Moto 2, I'm like, all right, real Tomac showing up. Like he's going to start kicking some ass, and it's just going to happen. And he starts up front. And Marvin gets a decent start this time. Baggett starts behind most of these guys. I think he was like 10th or 9th or something like that. Bogle kind of was nowhere to be found most of the moto. He just kind of hovered inside of the top 10, but wasn't the same comfort level as he was, I guess, in the first moto. And I heard a little bit about him saying that like he got so psyched up from the first moto win that he pumped up. So I could understand that as well. But the absolute story was the fact that Tomac got the lead fairly early. And I'm like, all right, here we go. Tomac's going to check out. It's time for him to go. He's going to kick some ass, and that's going to be it. He's going to win Moto 2. He's going to go 7-1. He won't win the overall or whatever, but that's just what's going to happen. And out of nowhere, Blake Baggett, you know, flies through, gets into second, and just kind of stays a moderate distance behind Tomac. Like he wasn't super catching him, and then like a light switch flick, he just started reeling him in by chunks, like big chunks, and was on him before you could even realize what was going on. And then made an incredible pass around the outside near the top of the hill at Thunder Valley, and blew by Tomac. And then Tomac looked like he was going to maybe put in a charge, but then it also looked like he didn't have anything for him like within a couple laps, and either backed it off or Baggett continued to pick up the pace. But either way, Baggett checked out from there and ended up going 3-1 to win the overall. I don't think Bogle ended up on the podium. I want to say Marvin went 4-3 for second or something like that. Don't remember the overalls because the race winning action was so crazy. It was kind of hard to focus on that. But either way, Marvin's still left with the points lead, and now Baggett is a lot closer to Tomac than he was. Like he's not, I think he's like maybe 6 points back at Tomac. Tomac's about 19 back or so of Marvin. So it's just like, it was a really, really interesting weekend. Like if you told me going into Thunder Valley or any national this year at all that Justin Bogle and Blake Baggett were going to split moto wins at a race, I would have been like, what? Did you just say that? Like, you sure you don't want to go back and rethink that? And like, no knock to either of those guys. Like I could have seen, you know, Baggett winning a race this year for sure, but I mean, I don't know. I just was so surprised by Bogle's performance in that first moto. And then Baggett just seemed like he was on a whole different level in that second moto. So I'm really interested to see what this class looks like going into High Point, whether we still see the same thing or not. This track has always been really, really good to Marvin. Don't believe he actually picked up his first career overall win here. I think that was Junadilla, but he has won the overall at High Point before in the 250 class. And he and Kenny always seem to ride this track really well, so I expect good things out of Marvin this weekend. But in general, I'm kind of like in a state of not really sure what is happening with Tomac. I don't see it like yet as a problem that he isn't riding to his capabilities or whatever you want to call it. I think that he's just, maybe had a bad week last week, and Glen Helen, he wasn't comfortable with the track or whatever. Like, it happens. And I never expected him to go 24-0, but I also didn't expect it to be like this kind of wide open after 3 rounds, where it seems like there's like 3 or 4 different guys that really could maybe win this championship. So I think that, like Tomac may get just super fired up this weekend, go out and win, but I don't know whether or not he's also going to just kind of fall back into the same Tomac that we know. Like last year when Tomac was getting, his tuckus handed to him week in and week out by Roxon, he just seemed, it was so weird to me because he just seemed like content with second, and Tomac's always been such a fighter that I was just like, what is going on? Like, why is he not just like pissed right now that he's not winning? Like, and even coming into this season, there was a lot of speculation that he was really unhappy with the Kawasaki and was planning on leaving the team at the end of the year, and then he figured it out for Supercross and re-signed with Kawasaki, so that's all out the door, obviously. But I'm not saying Tomac is going to not figure it out. I really think he will. But you just have to think about some of the championship runs that he's kind of fallen apart in before, like in 13 when him and Roxon went toe-to-toe in Supercross. Roxon misses the main at Salt Lake City, and Tomac starts up front and pretty much struggles to a 6th place finish. Like, he just was off it. So, like, I don't know if it's, just like mentally he doesn't have Dungey to challenge him consistency-wise, so he just, like, maybe he's like laying back a little bit knowing he kind of has these guys covered. But I don't know. Like I said, my mind's kind of just all over the board with where Tomac could end up this weekend. My personal opinion is he is going to come out and win again this weekend, but I also don't. It's not going to surprise me at all if he doesn't have it again this weekend. And I still do think he's going to win this championship. Like, I believe in the guy. I like the guy. He's a very hard worker, determined kid for sure. But you have to wonder a little bit about what's been going on with him these past couple weeks. So that's my my little rant on Tomac, but a little rant on Baggett as well. Like, holy crap, looks like the old Baggett is back. El Chupacabra is back again, so that's good to see. But he also kind of made an ass of himself by like going off on the Pulp MX show this week, and he basically said, like, I'm gonna break down Eli Tomac. He even said it after the race in the press conference, like, I'm gonna mentally destroy him, basically. Like, not I don't think he said those words, but he insinuated that, and it was kind of weird. I know Baggett's a tough competitor, and those mind games can definitely work, but it will bite him in the ass if he doesn't go out there and perform now. So unless he comes out swinging and kicks some ass at High Point, I expect him to kind of maybe fall back into a little tail between his legs position and still be good, but we'll see. But either way, like, he was hauling ass at Thunder Valley, and kudos to him. On to the 250 class, though. Another just randomly wild weekend. The first moto was probably one of the best 250 motos I have ever seen, if not, at least in a long while. There's like 6 guys that probably could have won that moto there at the end, and Forkner looked like he had the best opportunity to win it, while Alex Martin's winning the race. Like, Forkner's just charging through and like taking prisoners towards the end of the race, and then Forkner caught up to Martin, and Martin found another gear and started pulling away. So, not pulling away, but at least defending well enough that Forkner wasn't going to get him, and Alex was able to win that first moto. So he obviously looks like he's plenty comfortable on that TLD KTM, like kind of picking right up where he left off with Star last year. And now both Martin brothers have a moto win this outdoor season. Like, it's crazy where we're at right now. Like, Osborne still has the points lead, and in the second moto, J-Mart and Savacci went at it for the moto win, and Savacci rode great. Finally looks like he's kind of back to the Savacci we knew before the whole Vegas thing with Osborne and him that seemed to somewhat like mentally break him down a little bit or something. I don't really know what happened, but he just didn't look like he had it all Supercross, and now he looks like he was riding really well. I mean, him and J-Mart were hauling some serious ass that second moto. Like, they were flying, and J-Mart put a lot of pressure on Savatgy, and he never was able to crack him. Savatgy rode fantastic the whole race and just, held him off. Didn't crack under pressure at all. So hopefully that puts some confidence back into him. But either way, Savatgy wins the overall. Him and Amart split motos. Osborne still leads the points, and he's won 2 overalls out of 3, but he didn't win any motos last week at Glen Helen, 3 weeks ago, but last race at Glen Helen. So, this 250 class is crazy. Like, if Forkner comes out and wins this weekend at High Point, like, nobody's going to be like, wow, look at, Forkner, like, that's a surprise. Everyone's going to be like, yeah, I could expect that. Or if Plessinger comes out and wins at High Point, or if A-Mart goes 1-1, or J-Mart goes 1-1, or whatever, like, and all these guys can win overalls, and most of these guys are going to end up being championship contenders as we get down to the wire. So the dominance that we saw from Osborne at Hangtown doesn't look like it's still there. He was a little bit sick from what I understand at Thunder Valley, so that didn't help, and he rode great for being sick. So whether or not he comes back to what he was able to do at Hangtown this weekend at High Point, now that he's healthy, he's had a week to rest, don't know. Could happen. Also don't believe it's going to happen, though. I think that this 250 class has now been kind of thoroughly blown wide open, and a lot of these guys think they can win. And when a lot of these guys think they can win, they ride like they know how to win. So hopefully we see more of that. Just to touch on one little quick thing, that whole Aaron Plessinger flagger situation that you guys may or may not have seen if you watched the race. He crashed while leading the second moto, just for a short story on it, and was kind of in a blind spot over a jump, and the flaggers did a horrendous job of not blocking the track where his bike was over the blind jump, so he couldn't get to his bike. But regardless of that situation, there's like 4 guys that actually landed on his bike, and fortunately or unfortunately, whatever you want to call it, only one guy went down, and that guy was livid with the flaggers when he got up because nobody was directing them to a side of the track. They're just waving yellow flags. And there's, I can understand that for some randy guy that is given a flag for the day because, he's a local rider and wants to flag, and that's how they do it. They give these guys a meal and a vest and some training, and then they know how to flag for the day, apparently. But there's an MX Sports official standing right there just doing a horrendous job of flagging, and they're not paid very well, so you can't put too much blame on him. But either way, Plessinger's watching his bike get landed on a bunch, and he ended up DNF the moto from leading to DNF in a minute it happened. And Nick Way, who's training Adam Cianciarulo and Dakota Tedder, comes running down from the top of the hill and grabs the flagger from the Randy flagger dude that's standing right there. That's not the Pro Sports official, and or the MX Sports official. And he jumps out into the track and starts flagging and waving people to the right side of the track, which flaggers should be doing, that they're not. And good job for Nick Way. That's absolutely what needed to be done. And I just, what I've said to most people that have talked to me since that situation about, flaggers in pro racing, supercross, motocross, MXGP, whatever, is that, are you really that surprised? Because I'm not. As I watched that start happening, when I saw Plessinger go down on the backside of a blind jump, I was like, I know what's about to happen. He's not about to get up and get on his bike at all right here. And I will say something here that, Plessinger's standing on the far left side of the track while his bike is on the right side of the jump didn't really help the situation, because he's standing there and guys are like, oh, his bike must be right behind him, I'm going to go out here. So everybody avoided Plessinger himself standing there and jumped to the outside. However, the flaggers still are to blame here because they did a terrible job directing people to which side of the track they should go to. But again, I'm not surprised. I've seen horrific, just terrible flagging for years. And just as a small example, but Mike Alessi, when he crashed 3-4 corners into the Redbud National back in, 2008? I think it was during James's perfect season. Whatever it was, Alessi yard sails in front of the field. He's on the he's on the backside of this kind of tricky blind jump. And instead of flaggers jumping out onto the track and standing in the middle of the track, I get the whole field's coming, but they needed to do something, because Alessi just got pummeled. He got landed on 6 times, broke his pelvis and a bunch of ribs and stuff like that. And I really honestly don't feel like he's ever been the same since. which is a shame because he was fantastic that year. Like, he was the best rider except James Stewart that year, and yeah, he came back and rode decently, but still, you know, that whole situation was, you know, terrible, and just, you know, again, bad flagging, bad timing too. But it's just, flaggers are not, they're not paid well enough for what they do, for one, but they also don't seem to know much about what's going on the track very much either. And fortunately, it seems like those situations are going to be handled accordingly, and flaggers are going to be trained a little bit better now. But I mean, I hate that it takes another situation like that one, where it could have ended even a lot worse than it did. Fortunately, it didn't, but it could have gone worse for, you know, officials in, you know, the upper realm to say, like, hey, you know, maybe we should train these flaggers on how to do X in a Y situation or whatever. So that sucked for Plessinger. You know, ends up getting a DNF out of it, and he's way behind the 8 ball now when it comes to going for the championship. I'm sure he's just in full race win mode focus now from here on out. But I mean, I'm not gonna say he was gonna win that second moto, but damn, was he starting to take off at the front, and a little bit of a shame there. So that's a little bit about pro motocross as we stand right now. One last thing I want to touch on, and I'm gonna do one more lap so I can touch on this. As you may have kind of picked up from listening to this video, there was actually 4 different moto winners at Thunder Valley. Amart won the first 250 moto, Justin Bogle won the first 450 moto, and then Savachi won the second 250 moto, and Baggett won the second 450 moto. Yeah, so 4 different winners, 4 motos. Really interesting, right? Not too often that happens, and it's pretty rare that you see it. Even rarer so is the fact that in the past 2 races, Glen Helen and Thunder Valley, we've had 8 motos ran, 4 motos in each class, and there has been 8 different moto winners. And that really struck a chord with me, and in my weekly column that I write over at motoxaddicts.com, I talked a little bit more about when this happened last, and not to spoil the article too much, but the last time that this did happen was 17 years ago. So if you want to go read that article, find out more about when that happened last, and how it came to fruition this year, and what was happening when that happened last, and how crazy the sport has changed since then and stuff like that. There will be a link to it in the description below, so please go ahead and check that out. You know, comment and let me know your thoughts on the page, or you know, just read the article, and hope you enjoy it at least, because I had a good time writing it, and it was really fun doing a little bit of research to figure out when the last time that it happened. So yeah, cool beans, a little history made this last couple weeks. Hopefully the trend continues in High Point. We have a lot more parity in the series now, it seems, and I like it. I like when you come into each race and you don't really know who's going to win, and that's kind of where I feel like we're at right now. You know, there could be some clear favorites that I could pick, but again, like at Thunder Valley, I just didn't really know who I expected to win, other than I thought Tomac would dominate there, but he didn't. So who knows what's going to happen now, and that's good. You know, you want a series where a lot of people can win and actually do win. So right on that. Well, I'm going to wrap up this video once I hit the finish line next time by. Ran a 2:11.6. It's not really that great in terms of some of the times that the top pro guys are running in this game right now. I'm seeing 153s, 152s. So those guys are clearly hauling ass. I don't race competitively in this game anymore, and or really play it that much very often, so the fact that I'm even reasonably getting around the track is still kind of a win to me. But hopefully I'll get my setup dialed in for outdoors. I'll do a video on that, and you guys can check that out when it's up as well. But again, I hope you guys enjoyed another video of the official tracks in MX Simulator here on the channel. If you liked it, like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll see you guys in the next one.